Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a stubborn Montana rancher clashes with a power-hungry HOA queen over a dirt road, things spiral into sabotage, forged documents, viral videos, and a war for the soul of private property. This isn't just a land dispute, it's a rural rebellion. And Dan Horsby never backs down. My name's Dan Horsby. I'm 45, stubborn as hell, and I've got 260 acres of prime Montana land that I've bled, sweated, and buried more than a few fence posts into. I used to be a forest ranger before I took over the ranch from my old man. These days, I run cattle, fix machines, and keep to myself, mostly by choice. People talk too much, drive too fast, and trespass like private property is just a suggestion. Especially lately. See, my land sits just outside this shiny new suburban tumor called Beaver Summit. A fresh-off-the-plans HOA community with perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, and houses that all look like they were copy-pasted from a real estate brochure. They popped up maybe 5 years ago, and at first, I didn't think much of them. Figured they'd stick to their cul-de-sacs and bake sales and leave the rest of us in peace. I was wrong. My access road is a long dirt stretch, registered under my name since 1993. It splits off the county highway and winds about 1.5 miles through the edge of my property before dead-ending at my barn. It also happens to run, just barely, along the edge of the new HOA development. And that was enough of an invitation, apparently. It started small, a few joggers cutting through in the mornings, then couples on bicycles with kids riding behind like ducklings. Then it got worse. People started using it as a shortcut to the lake, even though there's a proper public road not 2 miles around. I'd see SUVs bounce down the gravel, kicking up dust like they owned the place. Someone even parked a Prius on my field one day, probably thought it was a designated picnic area. Another family brought an inflatable pool, set it up 20 yards from my cattle fence, and blasted some god-awful pop music loud enough to scare off the damn hawks. The final straw, though, that came one weekend in early May. I was out in the southern pasture tightening fence lines when I heard a scream. One of my bulls, Hammerjack, a 2,000-pound walking wrecking ball, was panicked. I sprinted over and saw him crashing into the fence, eyes wild, nostrils flaring. Just past the line were 2 teenagers, shrieking and waving what looked like a drone controller. Idiots must have been buzzing him for fun. One kid tripped trying to run, and Hammerjack barreled through the wire and clipped him on the thigh. Not fatal, but it left a hell of a gash. Could have been worse. I called the ambulance myself, even helped wrap the kid's leg until the medics showed up. And how did the HOA respond? Not with thanks. Not with apologies. Number: Karen and Greg Miller, parents of the kid, showed up screaming about unsafe livestock and irresponsible landowners. They said I should have had a fence higher than 4 feet if I didn't want kids to be hurt. I asked them what part of private property, do not enter, they didn't understand. I'd already posted signs, lots of them, clean, metal ones in bold red and white. I'd confronted some of the regular offenders directly, told them plain, "You're on my land, don't come back." They smiled, nodded, and showed up again the next day. After the Hammerjack incident, I'd had enough. My lawyer helped me file a civil suit against the Millers for trespassing and the emotional and physical damage caused to my livestock. We won, open and shut case. Judge even made a point to say that the kid was lucky my bull wasn't feeling mean that day. I got compensated for vet costs, damages to my fence, and a bit more for good measure. About $15,000 total. Felt like justice, until the retaliation started. Next week, someone threw raw chicken guts into my driveway. Then my mailbox got smashed twice. Every time I drove past the edge of Beaver Summit, I got glares, mutters, someone flipping me off behind a hedge. HOA board meetings started including me by name in their minutes, even though I'm not part of their little kingdom. Word got around I was the crazy cowboy trying to gatekeep nature. I didn't care. Not really. I wasn't here to make friends. But I knew something was coming. You don't piss off suburban tyrants and get away clean, especially not their queen bee. Her name was Karen Oldridge. And if I thought I'd seen petty before, well, I was about to get an education. I hadn't seen the gate coming. Should have, maybe. But I figured the HOA types would keep to their passive-aggressive notes and threats of legal action they didn't understand. Turns out, when you humiliate the suburban monarchy and cost one of their own 15 grand, they don't stew. They strike. It was a Thursday when I noticed things were off. I was heading into town for feed, usual trip, slow drive down the dirt road that snakes out to the highway. But as I rounded the bend past the ridge, I hit the brakes hard. Right there, at the narrowest point before the split with the HOA's edge road, stood a massive set of metal gates, fresh paint still gleaming in the morning sun. Tall, reinforced, bolted into 2 concrete slabs, digital keypad, cameras, security signs, and, the cherry on top, a brand new aluminum sign drilled into the frame that read, Private Access, Beaver Summit HOA Residents Only, Unauthorized Entry Prohibited. Violators will be prosecuted. I sat there in the cab of my tractor stunned. I wasn't angry, not yet. I wasn't scared. I just stared, like someone who walked into his own kitchen and found a stranger eating cereal at the table. They didn't even call. No letter, no warning. Just sealed off my own road like it was a goddamn gated community. My name's on that land. My name's on the damn road deed. But apparently that didn't mean squat to Karen Oldridge and her clipboard mafia. I reversed back up the road chewing on a cold cup of coffee, heart pounding slower than usual, but heavier. Back in the barn, I parked the tractor, fed the dogs, and stared at the old metal chains hanging by the tool bench. Then I called Earl. Earl Blevins is the only man I know who'd lost 3 fingers and still rebuilds diesel engines for fun. We met when I was a ranger and he was a military sapper. Now he's a freelance mechanic with a habit of saying, "I've seen worse," about things that should not be seen. When I told him what happened, he didn't ask for clarification. Bringing the Kubota. Damn right, I said. We met 30 minutes later at the front gate. I had my GoPro strapped to the hood, the chain coiled like a rattlesnake on the hitch. Earl brought beer. Not to drink, just to chill in the cooler, like a promise. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. I threw the chain around the center post of the gate, double-looped it, then gave Earl a nod. He climbed into his old backhoe, more rust than machine, but it growled like a demon when it started. First pull, slow torque, then a jolt. The metal groaned. Second pull, pop. 1 post came loose. Third pull, the whole damn thing ripped from the ground, concrete base and all. It landed like thunder in the ditch, dust flying. I walked over, grabbed a can of spray paint from my toolbox, and scrawled on what was left of the frame. Illegal obstruction removed. Next one gets burned. Earl filmed the whole thing on the GoPro. I edited it later, slapped on some subtitles, added a timestamp, and posted it to my website under a tab called Land Defense. I figured a few rancher buddies might get a kick out of it. By sundown, the video was sitting at 10,000 views. By midnight, it was up to 60,000. Someone must have reposted it on Reddit. Then TikTok got hold of it. I started getting emails from strangers. One guy said he'd print my face on a t-shirt. Another asked if I wanted to come on his podcast and talk about the rural revolution. I ignored most of it. The attention made me twitchy. That wasn't why I did it. I just wanted my road back. But the next day, when I drove past the wreckage on the way to town, I noticed a fresh batch of tire tracks. 2 SUVs from the HOA side stopped just shy of the ditch, like they didn't dare cross the boundary. Good. Let them look. I didn't start this war, but I was sure as hell not going to lose it. I didn't hear from Karen that day. Or the next. I figured she was licking her wounds, maybe planning her next HOA newsletter headline, something like, "Local farmer destroys infrastructure, dances on community values." But the silence? It was temporary. The kind that hangs in the air right before a tornado. By the 3rd day, I was back to my routine. Morning rounds, watering the upper pasture, fixing a busted hydraulic line on the sprayer. The gate pieces still lay in the ditch like a broken jaw. No one had dared touch them. Someone had duct-taped a paper sign to the rubble that said "terrorist" in shaky block letters. I left it there, made for good atmosphere. That afternoon, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered, not mailed. Cream-colored envelope. Fake cursive font, smelling faintly of citrus and entitlement. It was from the Beaver Summit HOA Legal Committee, which, as far as I knew, was just Karen and whichever bored husband she could bully into co-signing. It accused me of willful destruction of community property, harassment, inciting violence, and unlawful use of agricultural machinery as a weapon. Yeah. The part that really stuck out, though, was the fine print at the bottom. This matter is now being pursued through appropriate civil and regulatory channels, including a formal appeal to the Lincoln County Planning Board regarding the status and designation of Road 12B that stopped me cold. Road 12B is the legal name of the dirt stretch that cuts through my property, my road, my deed, my taxes, my gravel. That appeal they were referencing, that meant only one thing. They were trying to reclassify the road, maybe even file for a public easement. I called Lily. Lily Gray is my attorney. She's small, sharp, and once made a federal land assessor cry in court. Her voicemail was full, which meant I wasn't the only one under siege by suburban lawyers that week. I left a message and got to work pulling out every piece of paperwork I had. The 1993 deed, the land surveys, the notarized affidavits from my father back when he paved that damn thing himself with crushed rock and a rented cat. The next morning, Lily called me back while I was elbow deep in a carburetor. She already knew about the video. She'd seen the gate footage and read through the HOA's complaint. "They're not trying to sue you for damages," she said. "They're trying to take your road." She explained that HOA had filed a motion with the county to designate my road as a shared community access route. Their argument: that Road 12B had been used by residents continuously and publicly for over 5 years, and therefore should be classified under implied public servitude due to consistent public use. I nearly threw my wrench through the windshield. "They can't just make up a history," I growled. "They're not," Lily replied. "They're manufacturing one." I knew what she meant. I'd seen it before. Property rights being slowly dissolved by loopholes and precedent. It didn't matter if the gate was illegal. If they could get the county to recognize the road as public, I'd lose the one physical boundary that kept Beaver Summit out of my life. That same afternoon, the other shoe dropped. I was walking the fence line near the lower creek, checking erosion, looking for signs of elk traffic, when I saw a flash of silver, something shiny half buried near the bank. I pushed back the brush and found a 5-gallon metal container, lid cracked open, reeking like diesel and rot. Closer inspection confirmed it: used motor oil, leaked into the shallow soil, running in tendrils toward the water. I didn't even hesitate. Called the EPA hotline. 2 hours later, a pair of federal agents showed up in black trucks with clipboards and cameras. They photographed everything, asked polite but pointed questions. I walked them back to the source. One of them, a woman named Barnes, crouched down and lifted the canister with a gloved hand. "No cereal, but this doesn't look like natural runoff. Somebody dumped this." I nodded. "Somebody wants to make it look like my land's a biohazard." They didn't confirm. They didn't deny. But I could tell from their faces they knew damn well this was planted. While they took samples, I paced the ridgeline, breathing through clenched teeth. Karen, it had to be. The timing was too precise. First the gate, then the road grab. Now this. They weren't just trying to block me in, they were trying to destroy the credibility of my land. A contaminated creek could mean shutdowns, investigations, fines, invalidation of my property claims. If they got the EPA to slap a regulatory notice on my road, that could force the county to intervene. I was being outmaneuvered, but not for long. I didn't sleep that night, not because of fear. No, I've seen worse. But because someone was playing chess with my land, and I'd spent too long outsmarting fire, floods, and frozen diesel lines to get checkmated by a woman named Karen and her army of lawn inspectors. By dawn, I had a plan. I spent the morning cleaning up the oil site. EPA had flagged it for review, but I knew the real damage wasn't chemical. It was reputational, and if they wanted to bury me in bureaucracy, I needed something louder, something faster, something they couldn't sanitize. I pulled out the old GoPro, the long-range mic, and an extra body cam I used during calving season when I needed to crawl under cattle in pitch black. Then I called in a favor. His name was Simon, 25, former journalism student, now a full-time YouTuber who documented small-town corruption. We'd met a year ago at a county water rights meeting where he'd filmed a commissioner threatening to make a ranch disappear. I offered him coffee and told him the HOA was trying to turn my private road into a public toilet. He arrived that afternoon, drone in hand, eyes lit up like Christmas. Is she really named Karen? Her nameplate says so. Then this is gonna be gold. We set up hidden cameras at 3 spots, the old loading dock, the north tree line, and a perch across the ditch from the former gate. All pointed at the road, all motion triggered. Then we waited. The bait, me. I drafted a text to Karen through the HOA's official portal, something she never thought I had access to, thanks to a neighbor who hated her enough to lend me his login. I wrote, Karen, I think we both know this is escalating beyond control. I'd rather settle things like adults. Can we meet and talk? I'm willing to compromise on the road if you're reasonable. I signed it Daniel H. and attached a location, an old grain shed just off the access road, well within view of all 3 cams. To her credit, she didn't take long. 3 hours later, a black Escalade pulled up. Karen got out alone, wearing a blazer like she was testifying in court, and sunglasses like anyone gave a damn who she was. I was already sitting on a hay bale inside the shed, pretending to be tired. The cameras rolled silently. "Daniel," she said, with the condescension of someone addressing a dog that just pissed on her patio, "I appreciate you reaching out. You're smarter than I gave you credit for." "Let's keep it civil," I said. She walked in, crossed her arms, and gave me a smile I wouldn't trust on a corpse. "You understand," she said. "You're only making this worse for yourself. The EPA report's going to stick. The county's getting pressure from both ends. Road 12B's future isn't really up for debate anymore. That road belongs to me. Legally. For now. But public interest is a powerful thing, and if I were you, I'd stop waving chains around before someone gets hurt. Or arrested." My heart rate didn't even twitch. "You threatening me, Karen?" She stepped forward, lowered her voice. "I'm advising you, Dan, because next time it won't be oil in your creek. It'll be a land surveyor with a court order. And when that happens, your tractors don't mean a damn thing." I said nothing, just nodded slowly, then tilted my head toward the open door. "You're being recorded," I said. The color drained from her face like someone flipped off a switch. I didn't even have to point. She knew. She looked toward the road, saw Simon's drone hovering like a silent hawk above the tree line. She didn't say another word, just turned, walked to her car, and slammed the door hard enough to set off her own alarm. 3 hours later, the video was live. Simon edited fast, added captions, slowed down her threats, highlighted her quotes like a war crimes documentary. He uploaded it under the title, HOA President Threatens to Seize Ranch Land, Caught on Tape. By midnight, it had over 200,000 views. By morning, it was trending on Twitter under the tag hashtag #FreeTheFarmer. The pressure broke fast. County planning postponed the public hearing on Road 12B. 2 local news crews showed up at the front gate to do live reports. A state rep even tweeted, "Private property rights aren't optional." We're watching Lincoln County. Karen went silent. Her email stopped. Her name disappeared from the HOA's public statements. I knew better than to think she was finished, but I'd finally drawn blood. And I wasn't done. After the video went viral, I expected Karen to retreat for a while, maybe even resign. But people like her don't vanish. They regroup. And when they come back, they don't kick down the door. They file motions. The silence after the leak lasted just under a week. I spent it preparing. I met with Lily, handed her a full folder of old property records, and dug out every scrap of documentation I could find. Road surveys, zoning maps, the original 1993 deed my father had notarized when we registered the land. Lily smiled when she saw the hand-drawn layout with his initials. "Gold," she said. "This is what wins cases." Then came the court notice. Karen and the HOA were suing me in civil court, claiming I had destroyed a designated community structure, threatened residents, and violated the neighborhood's right of reasonable access. They wanted $32,000 in damages and an injunction to bar me from modifying or obstructing community infrastructure, including the road I legally own. It was a legal joke, but in the wrong judge's hands, even jokes turned dangerous. That same day, Lily filed a countersuit. Trespassing, unlawful construction, attempted encroachment, defamation, and a big one, fraudulent misrepresentation of land ownership to county authorities. She filed a separate claim with the land assessor's office, requesting an investigation into how HOA even got a permit to install the gate in the first place. The land never belonged to them. Someone had lied. I thought we were ready. And then I got another visit from the EPA. This time it was 4 agents, same truck, same clipboards. But this time they came with a notice. Temporary land use suspension on my lower pasture and creek area pending environmental remediation. They handed me the paperwork, walked the perimeter, and flagged off the creek bed with red tape. I wasn't allowed to operate machinery, herd livestock near the water, or interfere with potential evidence. I called Lily, almost laughing. "They're trying to shut you down," she said, voice clipped. "This is legal suffocation. Hit you from every angle until something sticks, or you run out of money." I didn't laugh after that. We needed to dig deeper. If they were playing dirty, I had to find out how dirty. Enter Clint. Clint used to work for the county records office. Got fired for leaking internal emails to a journalist exposing misuse of municipal funds. Since then, he'd worked freelance as a researcher for hire, mostly for defense attorneys and journalists. Lily knew him. She called him my ferret, sniffing out buried papers and crooked deals. Clint pulled the permit logs for the HOA's gate. Took 3 days and a modest bribe in the form of bourbon and a signed copy of the Montana Water Rights Manual. What he found made Lily swear out loud for the first time since I'd met her. The application for the gate's construction had been filed 6 months ago. It included a forged signature from a registered land surveyor, someone named Daniel Cook, who allegedly certified the boundary between HOA land and mine. Problem was, Daniel Cook had died 2 years ago. And according to Clint, his signature didn't match any records on file. We had them. Lily added fraudulent documentation to our countersuit and filed for an emergency hearing. We now had evidence that the HOA had used a fake document to gain a permit to build on land they didn't own. That wasn't just civil fraud, it bordered on criminal charges. But it got better. Clint kept digging and found something buried in an old utility plan. A water line, small, PVC, unregistered in the zoning request, ran through the edge of my property, feeding the sprinkler system for 3 of the HOA's model homes. It had never been permitted. No easement, no agreement, nothing. They'd been stealing water. I walked out to the old tool shed near the ridge, followed the old trench my dad had dug decades ago, and found it. A thin gray pipe snaking under the wire fence. I flagged it, took photos. Cut it clean with bolt cutters and capped it with a tag. Unauthorized utility. Access revoked. That night, 3 of their lawns turned brown. I slept great. By morning, Karen had gone from HOA president to full-blown berserker. Her emails were public again, passive-aggressive manifestos accusing me of sabotage and environmental terrorism. One ended with, "This land war is not over, Mr. Horsby." She was right. It was just warming up. The courthouse in Lincoln County smells like stale coffee and worn-out justice. Beige walls, flickering fluorescents, and benches that squeak when you shift your weight. I sat on one of those benches in a clean flannel shirt and jeans that didn't have oil on them. For once, my boots were polished. Earl said I looked like I was going to church. I told him I hoped it was Karen's funeral. The courtroom was packed. Half the HOA showed up, some in suits, some in windbreakers that screamed retired middle management. Karen strutted in like she owned the damn place, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too expensive and a haircut that said, "I tell people what to do at..." Yoga Lily leaned over and whispered, "She's smiling now. Let's see how long that lasts." The judge was a wiry man in his 60s with a limp and a voice like sandpaper. He didn't look amused. Especially not when Karen's lawyer started listing the charges against me. Destruction of HOA property, intimidation with farm equipment, deliberate disruption of community cohesion. I couldn't help it. I snorted. Lily stood up, calm and precise, and laid out our countersuit. She dropped the folder with the forged survey documents right on the bench. Then she handed out copies of the 1993 deed, the zoning maps, and a notarized letter from Clint's investigation. She even brought a printed-out photo of the forged signature and a copy of Daniel Cook's obituary. Karen's face started to twitch. Then came the best part. Lily called the real county surveyor to the stand. The man testified under oath that he'd never signed any permit for Beaver Summit, had never approved the gate, and had filed a formal complaint about the signature months ago. But somehow, it had been lost in the system. The judge's eyebrows went up so fast I thought they might lift off. Karen's lawyer turned pale. He stammered something about internal miscommunication. The judge interrupted him. "Are you saying your client submitted construction permits based on a document signed by a dead man?" Silence. Then Lily handed over the footage from my GOPRO and the drone. The judge watched the video, me and Earl tearing the gate out by its concrete teeth. He paused, rewound, watched again. At one point, he chuckled, out loud. "You filmed this?" "Figured I'd need proof," I said. He nodded slowly. Smart man. Karen didn't look so confident anymore. Lily called one final witness, a forensic handwriting expert. The expert confirmed that Karen herself had filled out part of the permit paperwork, then had someone else forge the signature to make it look official. This wasn't just carelessness, it was fraud. Things unraveled fast after that. Karen tried to speak. Judge shut her down. "You'll get your turn when I'm done reading the list of statutes you've violated." Then came the cherry on top. Clint's discovery about the illegal water line. Lily submitted photos of the cut pipe, satellite data from an irrigation sensor, and 3 complaints from HOA residents who'd called their landscapers about dry zones. One even emailed Karen demanding answers. Turns out she never told the HOA board about the pipeline. Never got a vote. Just diverted water through my land and hoped no one would notice. The judge recessed for lunch. When we came back, he dropped the hammer. Motion to dismiss the HOA's claims. Granted. My countersuit. Accepted in full. He announced an official recommendation for criminal investigation into fraud, unauthorized construction, environmental tampering, and abuse of community funds. Karen's face looked like wet drywall. She didn't say a word. She just stared ahead, blinking like she was underwater. Outside the courthouse, the media was waiting. Simon was already filming. I gave a short statement. Nothing fancy. "I don't start fights," I said, "but I finish 'em." The clip made the evening news. Karen made the front page, for all the wrong reasons. And Beaver Summit. That empire was starting to crack. It took 3 weeks for the final ruling to come in. 3 weeks of waiting, fielding calls from journalists, and fixing the damage the HOA had done to the road, the pasture, and my name. The EPA cleared the oil contamination after a second round of tests showed no lasting impact. No fines, no violations, just a quiet withdrawal and a polite letter that didn't include an apology, of course. But the big hammer, that came from the state prosecutor's office. Karen Oldridge, president of Beaver Summit HOA, was formally charged with 4 counts: falsifying official documents, illegal use of HOA funds, unauthorized utility installation, and criminal misrepresentation. They tacked on a 5th one after some of the HOA board members flipped to save themselves: attempted property theft under color of law. Her bail was posted by her husband Greg, who looked like he aged 10 years overnight. She resigned the same day. No press conference, no farewell, just a 2-line email to the HOA board saying she was stepping back to focus on her personal well-being. Yeah, behind bars maybe. In court, the judge finalized the civil ruling. Beaver Summit HOA was ordered to pay me $380,000 in damages, broken down like this: $90,000 for emotional distress and reputational harm, $45,000 for interference with lawful use of private property, and $245,000 in penalties for unpermitted construction, illegal water usage, and legal costs. Their insurance covered part of it. The rest came from special assessments, meaning every resident of Beaver Summit now had to pay for Karen's little war. Word spread fast. Meetings turned hostile. Neighbors started demanding audits, transparency, resignations. Someone posted a photo of Karen's mugshot on the HOA bulletin board with the caption, "Your dues at work." Meanwhile, my road remained exactly what it had always been: mine. The county officially confirmed that Road 12B was private, exclusive to my parcel with no public access or easement. They even reissued the property maps to reflect that, just in case someone decided to get cute again. I didn't gloat. Not much. I just replaced the old bullet-riddled private road sign at the entrance with a brand new freshly welded metal plate that read, "Private Road. Trespassers will be recorded, reported, and sued into the dirt." Underneath that, in smaller letters, I added, "We've done it before." The day I bolted it to the post, Earl brought over beer and lawn chairs. We sat by the ridge, watching the sun set behind the hills, listening to the sound of nothing but wind and distant cattle. No HOA music, no SUVs cutting across the grass. Just land, the way it was meant to be. "You think it's really over?" Earl asked. I looked at the quiet road, the empty ditch where the gate used to be, the burned spot in the grass where someone had probably tried to light another protest sign and gave up halfway. "Yeah," I said, "at least until someone else gets the bright idea to mess with a man who owns his fence and his fight." It's been 6 months since the trial ended, and the dust finally settled on the battlefield. If you drive past Beaver Summit now, the place looks quieter, not better, just humbled. The HOA board is under full reconstruction. They brought in an outside auditing firm, turned over finances to county oversight, and, my personal favorite, made serving on the board a voluntary-only non-compensated position. Funny how nobody's rushing to run. Karen's case went federal. The forgery charge stuck, and so did the misuse of HOA funds. 4 years in minimum security with 2 suspended. She took a plea deal and won't be able to serve on any board, advisory panel, or leadership role in any community or nonprofit for the rest of her life. I didn't show up for sentencing. Didn't need to. Some fights you win in the ring. Others you walk away from, knowing you left a mark deep enough they'll feel it for years. The money came in pieces. Insurance covered the basics. The rest came from a staggered settlement, $10,000 a month, straight from HOA dues. A reminder every 30 days of who really lost. But I didn't build a pool, didn't buy a new truck. I put a chunk into new fencing, upgraded the well system, and bought a second-hand weather drone. I donated $15,000 to the county fire fund under Karen's name, even sent her a thank you card with a picture of my green pastures and a handwritten note, all thriving. Thanks for asking, people still stop by. Ranchers from 3 counties over, law students. Some reporter from Oregon came out last week just to take a picture next to the "Trespassers will be sued into the dirt" sign. Simon's channel hit 500,000 subscribers. He sent me a hoodie that says, "Fence first, talk later." I wear it to town sometimes. Folks smile when they see me now. The best part? The road. Road 12B hasn't seen a single trespasser in months. No joggers, no golf carts, no inflatable pools. Just dust and the occasional hawk overhead. It's mine again. Quiet, solid, untouchable. One morning, I was walking the property line and found a rock sitting at the base of the fence. Someone had carved into it. Respect the line. I kept it. Set it on my porch next to the boot scraper. I don't pretend this made me some kind of folk hero. I'm just a man who stood his ground. But if someone else finds themselves backed into a corner by committees and cowards with clipboards, maybe they'll remember the farmer who answered with chain links and state law. Maybe they'll remember that fences don't make you mean. They make you free.